knew something was off the moment I stepped outside that morning. It wasn't the weather, though the air felt weirdly thick, sticky in a way that makes you check if you're running a fever. The street looked normal, but it wasn't. The noise was wrong, like someone had turned the volume down on the world, or maybe people just didn't want to talk. That's when I noticed Mr. Powell's old Ford truck idling at the curb with the engine running and no one in the driver's seat. I stood in my driveway for a second, waiting for him to come around the front of his house and say something like, "Hey, Ben, morning." But all I saw was the empty street, his door wide open, and that stupid bobblehead dog in his window, nodding away to no one. I almost called out but stopped myself, feeling like an idiot for getting spooked by a neighbor's car. I kept telling myself to just get on with my day, but I couldn't. I checked my phone, 2 texts from my mom, both from last night. "Are you coming for dinner Sunday? And let me know if you need groceries." No new ones, but that wasn't weird. I opened Facebook. More people than usual were posting about some kind of virus, but the comments were already full of people making fun of it, saying it was just the flu, that media was hyping it up. Still, I couldn't ignore how many people were coughing when I finally got to the store, like it wasn't subtle. One woman looked like she was choking, standing in the cereal aisle, red-faced, clutching her chest. Her husband just patted her back and kept arguing with their kid about Pop-Tarts. I grabbed a basket and pretended not to notice, but every time I heard someone cough, my brain went straight to contagion. I didn't realize my hand was shaking until I fumbled the eggs and had to pick up the carton from the floor. On my way back home, there was a military van parked by the pharmacy. I live in a quiet neighborhood, small town, blue collar, the kind of place where people still wave at you from their porches. I've never seen military anything here, except the time the high school did that Army Career Day. This wasn't that. The van was olive drab, just sitting there, windows blacked out, engine off. I walked slower, hoping someone would step out and joke about getting lost, but no one moved. There were no markings, just a big orange sticker on the back that looked official, but I couldn't read it from where I was. I kept moving, watching my reflection in the window of the laundromat, just to see if anyone was behind me. Nobody was. By the time I got back inside, I'd worked myself up. The house felt too quiet. Even my dog Charlie wouldn't settle. He kept pacing at the door, growling at shadows. I checked my phone again. No new texts. I tried calling my friend Jodel straight to voicemail. Tried my sister. Nothing. I checked Twitter. Trending. Breaking virus outbreak. Stay calm. The news was everywhere, but every channel said something different. Some were saying it was a hoax. Others were running live feeds of hospitals with people crowding the lobbies. But there was something else that stuck in my mind. A red streak on the sidewalk by the mailboxes. At first I thought it was paint, maybe a kid messing around. But as I watched, a woman I'd never seen before walked past, dragging her feet, and left another line behind her like she was leaking. No one stopped her, not even the old guy who usually sits by the bench to smoke and watch the cars. I don't know why, but I backed away from the window and locked the door. It was just after noon when my phone stopped working. The signal bars disappeared and a big red X showed up where my Wi-Fi should have been. I tried everything, reset, airplane mode, the whole 9 yards. Nothing. I flipped on the TV and the emergency alert system started blaring. I jumped so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. The message was all static and a robotic voice. "Please remain calm. Shelter in place. Do not attempt to travel. Authorities are responding to an incident." I waited for it to finish, expecting more, but the channel cut out to static. I tried another one. Same. The last thing I saw before everything cut off was a hospital lobby. Someone was banging on the glass, bloody hands smeared everywhere, while nurses in hazmat suits tried to hold the doors shut. I don't know how long I sat there staring at the blank screen. I tried to tell myself it would be fine, that it was just another overreaction, but then I heard screaming from outside. Real, guttural, the kind that sounds like someone's being torn in half. I grabbed the baseball bat from my closet, the one I haven't used since high school, and stood by the window, peeking through the blinds. I saw Mrs. Ulkins, my next-door neighbor, pounding on the glass of her own door, trying to get back inside while her husband held her by the wrist. She was bleeding from her nose and mouth, and her eyes looked wrong, like she was staring through me, not at me. He kept yelling at her, telling her to stop, but she snapped at him, literally, teeth bared, and bit into his arm. He screamed. She didn't let go. I watched the blood run down his sleeve. He collapsed, and she went still, hunched over him like a dog guarding a bone. I stumbled back from the window, heart hammering so hard it hurt. I wanted to call someone, anyone, but the phone was dead. I texted Joel again anyway, out of habit. "Something's happening. Are you okay?" I didn't expect an answer. The only sound in the house was Charlie whining in the hallway and the ticking of the kitchen clock. That's when I decided to lock everything. I turned every deadbolt, shoved chairs under the doorknobs, pulled the blinds. I dragged the couch in front of the sliding glass door. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I filled the bathtub with water because I remembered reading somewhere you should do that if you ever lost power. I stuffed towels in the cracks of the windows. I tried calling my mom. Voicemail. I left her a message anyway. "Stay inside. Don't answer the door. I love you." I almost cried after that, but I didn't. I just went back to the window and watched the street. By nightfall, the neighborhood was dead silent except for the sirens and that awful, distant sound, like people were tearing each other apart just out of sight. I don't know what's happening, but I know it's not just a virus. And I know I'm not the only one who feels it. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound outside felt like it was meant for me. At one point, I heard Charlie whining at the back door, claws skittering against the tile. I thought maybe he had to go out, but when I crouched down to pet him, he flinched and looked at me with those wide, panic eyes dogs get right before a thunderstorm. Somewhere around 3 a.m., I started hearing footsteps on the porch next door. At first, I thought it was just the wind rattling the empty recycling bins, but then came a heavy, dragging step, and then another, like someone walking with one shoe off. I peeked through the blinds. The porch light from across the street flickered and threw everything into sharp shadows. It was Mr. Powell, except he wasn't moving right. His arms hung loose, but his hands curled in tight, and his head jerked to the side with every step, like his neck was broken, and he was still trying to walk it off. His mouth hung open, and blood fresh thick ran down his chin. He didn't look at me, but I ducked back anyway, heart hammering. Like if I stayed quiet, he wouldn't know I was there. A crash came from the hallway. I jumped so hard I dropped my phone. Charlie barked and bolted for the bedroom, nails slipping on the hardwood. Someone was at the back door. No, not someone. Some people. I heard them fumbling with the handle, pressing up against the glass. I crept through the kitchen, bat in hand, telling myself it was probably just freaked out neighbors, someone needing help. But when I got close enough to see, I realized their faces weren't faces anymore. They looked ruined. Skin peeled back, eyes wild and sunk in, jaws working up and down, snapping at the empty air. One of them, a woman in a bathrobe, had half her scalp hanging by a thread. She pressed her mouth against the glass and left a red smear, then slammed her hands against the pane so hard I thought it would break. I backed away, breathing hard, not sure if I should fight or run. The woman in the robe started slamming her head against the door, again and again, a wet, dull sound that turned my stomach. The glass cracked, but didn't give. Then suddenly, they all jerked at once, like a switch flipped, and shuffled away, heading toward the street. I didn't know what pulled them, but I was glad they were gone. I tried to call out to anyone. Just say, "Hey, is anyone there?" But my voice died in my throat. Instead, I texted Joel again, pointless as it was. Then I called my mom, left another message, my voice shaking. "Mom, please answer the phone. I think something bad's happened here. I think people are sick, but it's not like the flu. Please, just stay inside. Don't answer the door, okay? I love you." I didn't hang up. I just let the call run until it cut off. I paced the house. I started to make a list in my head of what food I had, what water, what I could use to block windows. But I kept hearing that crash, that low moaning, over and over. The only thing I could do was try to keep myself busy. When the sun came up, the neighborhood was different. Every window looked dark. No cars moved. Then, out of nowhere, a scream cut through the silence. It was Sarah, the college girl who lived 2 houses down. She was running, barefoot, blood all over her pajamas. She banged on my door, sobbing, "Please, please let me in." Before I could even move, something slammed into her from behind. A man, shirtless, jaw unhinged, eyes wild. He dragged her to the ground, and I saw her face twist in terror. She kicked, tried to fight, but he bit her right on the shoulder. I couldn't watch. I turned away, but I still heard everything. That sound, her voice changing from screams to gurgling to nothing. Charlie barked like crazy, wanting to go out, but I just held him and kept whispering, "It's okay, shh." I could barely believe what I'd seen. My legs felt weak. I crawled over to the sliding glass door, careful not to be seen, and peeked out. The guy who'd bitten Sarah was gone, but her body was still on the lawn. And then, God, this still makes my skin crawl. She started to move again, not like someone getting up after a fall, but like a puppet, jerky and wrong. Her head rolled on her neck, and her arms twitched. Then she staggered to her feet. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Sarah was dead, and now she was walking. I lost it for a second, honestly. I just sat on the kitchen floor, knees to my chest, staring at the stove. All I could think was, nobody is ready for this. But it wasn't just my street. I could hear more sirens now. Then they'd cut off in mid-scream, or fade into nothing. Distant pops, maybe gunshots, maybe something else. I had to get out. I didn't know where to go, but staying here felt like waiting to die. I grabbed a backpack, stuffed in whatever food I could find, crackers, a jar of peanut butter, some water bottles, dog treats for Charlie. I found my dad's old hunting knife in the drawer and stuck it through my belt. I grabbed the bat and one of my winter jackets, even though it was June, just because it felt safe. But when I opened the garage door a crack to peek out, I heard shuffling footsteps right outside. I stopped, breathing so shallow I thought I might pass out. Something, stumbled past, feet dragging. It stopped at the edge of the garage, like it was sniffing the air, and then kept going. I waited for what felt like forever before I slipped back inside and locked every door again. I started writing notes. To myself, to my mom. "If you find this, I'm okay, or at least I was." It felt stupid, but it was all I could do. I pulled Charlie onto my lap, hugged him tight, and just sat there, listening to the new world happening right outside my walls. That's when I realized I was alone, and nobody was coming, and I wasn't sure I'd make it to the end of the next day. You always think you'll know what you'll do when the world falls apart. You tell yourself you'll be brave or smart, or at least not one of the people screaming on the news. But the truth is, it's just chaos. Dumb, raw survival. The only rule left is not dying, and even that's not simple anymore. That first real test came at dawn. I was crouched by the window, heart pounding so hard it made my ears ring. I saw movement by the neighbor's house. It was Joel, my best friend since middle school. He was limping, his jeans torn, blood all over his arms. I almost kicked the door open to pull him inside, but something stopped me. His face wasn't right. He kept blinking, twitching, one hand clutching his side like he was holding himself together. He saw me in the window and tried to wave, but it came out as this awkward, jerky motion. I wanted to believe he was just hurt. I wanted to believe he was the same guy who crashed on my couch after every bad breakup, the guy who always talked too loud during horror movies. But then he started banging on my door, not calling my name, not asking for help, just slamming his fists, harder and harder, until the glass rattled. I yelled, "Joel, stop, it's me." He didn't answer. He just kept pounding, his face twisting with every hit. Blood from his knuckles smeared the window. Behind him, two more figures appeared, Mrs. Elkins and that woman in the bathrobe. They were all moving together now, slow, jaws open, eyes glazed. I pressed my back against the door, gripping the back. This was it. If they got in, I was dead. But if I opened the door, I'd have to face Joel. It wasn't fair. None of this was fair. My hands were shaking so bad the bat almost slipped from my grip. I shouted again, hoping for something, anything. "Joel, please, don't." He froze, just for a second, head cocked like he almost remembered who I was. Then the others surged forward, smashing their hands against the glass. I had no choice. I ran for the kitchen, barricaded the door with the fridge. Charlie barked and whined, but I couldn't let them in. I couldn't save Joel, not like this. The banging stopped after a while. I peeked through a crack and saw them stumble away, searching for something else. My stomach twisted. That was my first break. That was the first line I crossed, choosing me over someone I loved. An hour later, the shelter at the end of the block went up in flames. I watched it burn through the gaps in the blinds. People, normal people, ran out screaming, some on fire, others covered in blood. The zombies followed, one after another, mindless and hungry. A little kid, I think his name was Danny, ran out with his mom. She tripped and fell, and he tried to pull her up, but she was already turning, mouth snapping, hands clawing at the pavement. Danny screamed for help, but nobody came. I closed my eyes, wishing I could erase what I'd seen. The whole block lit up, orange and black. The smoke poured into the sky. My safe place was gone. There was nothing left to hide behind. I couldn't stay. I shoved food and water into my backpack, wrapped Charlie in my jacket, and slipped out the back door. The air stung my throat. Smoke, rot, whatever the hell was turning people inside out. A zombie stumbled into the yard, mouth hanging open, half its face gone. I didn't think. I just swung the bat. It crunched, louder than I expected, wet and awful. And the thing dropped. My arms ached. I was sobbing, but I kept moving. Across the street, more shapes lurched from behind cars. Someone, maybe alive, maybe not, screamed from a backyard. I didn't look back. I sprinted through the chaos, past burning houses and bodies in the street. I almost made it to the corner before something grabbed my backpack and yanked me down. I hit the pavement, tasted blood in my mouth. It was Joel. He was faster now, eyes wild, mouth open in a silent scream. He grabbed my arm. I had to make a choice. I shoved the knife into his side, once, twice. He let go and I stumbled to my feet, limping, blood everywhere. Joel didn't get up. I kept running, heart broken, every step harder than the last. By the time I reached the edge of the neighborhood, the sun was up and the world was different. Smoke rose over my street. My hands were covered in blood, mine and Joel's. Charlie limped beside me, whining but alive. I didn't feel hopeful. I didn't feel doomed. I just felt empty. The only thing that mattered now was surviving the next step, then the next. Nothing would ever be normal again. I was someone else now. Someone who had crossed the line.